Some kind of common questions or mistakes that you've seen happen where you've had to get involved to fix them, or just, I guess, common things that people, may make a mistake with, or that you think is relevant for people to know, and you guys have helped to turn that around, I guess.
Okay. Probably one of the biggest things we find coming through is that, and this is why we're big advocates for having your documents checked before you purchase, and that's because people think that they can. Some people do think they can actually sign subject to finance on an auction contract.
Yes, they do.
They wonder whether or not you can still get a building inspection, or whether you can negotiate some of the conditions on auction contracts. You can't. So they're all available to get that legal advice well and truly, or consumer advice well and truly before the day.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, once you sign, it's really hard to fix the problem. So that's why it's critical to have a look at before you sign anything, and also to have sat down with your broker to understand, okay, what can I afford? And what discounts am I eligible for when it comes to stamp duty benefits? All those things get factored in. So I think it's really critical. Often we find a client might do a pre-approval on the internet. Take a sigh of relief and think, oh dear, this, because as you know, your scope of work, there's so many tiers behind and the levels of finance approval. It's not just tick a box. So I think it's really critical that someone sits down and gets a clear understanding of what they can afford and that they are eligible for their loan. Over and above that, with an auction campaign, as they get them checked, that's critical. Sometimes there's not a lot that you can change in that, but at least you understand exactly what it is that you're buying. You understand if some of the conditions are nasty and can go wrong, that they're not hitting you cold in the face halfway through the transaction. You've sort of thought, okay, well, I was aware of that, so it's a softer blow, and you understand that, and you receive that information better. But if it's a private sale, 100% negotiable. So a typical thing would be a client would go off to a property, or even actually, for argument's sake, an auction, and see that there's a land tax certificate in there, and not actually even make notice of the land tax. So in this last year, I've had land tax bills range from $800 right up to $25,000. So that's extraordinary. And people think, why do I have to pay? Well, if you don't negotiate it, and you don't know that you can negotiate it, it does form part of the normal adjustments, and yes, you'll be liable for that settlement.
That's fascinating, because I didn't know that was actually something you could negotiate.
Yes, and most people don't. And look, a vendor can say no, of course they can, but you've got an agent trying to put the two people together and a fair and reasonable price. So I would definitely look at that, because all of a sudden you've saved yourselves thousands. Or you might say, okay, well, that extra $25,000 in land tax, I can't afford to buy that property. It may even be $4,000. It's still $4,000 you weren't expecting.
Sure.
So that would be something we see, a common mistake. The other common mistake is drafting your own special conditions. You really need them looked at, because you can back yourself into a corner without even realising that you've done it. And again, once you've signed, it's too late.